Hey everyone, on this episode of the podcast, we're going to do a little differently. I was actually a guest on the podcast for Taurus Technologies, and we were able to discuss, acoustics in the office space. They're a technology company, so we discussed technology and what they do. Had a really good conversation, a really good time. And so we decided to share this on our podcast for you guys so you can listen to it and gain some insights and knowledge. Now, this interview actually happened before the pandemic, and so some of the things we talk about are going to feel a little bit strange because, the world has completely changed since this interview. But a lot of the principles that we do talk about are always going to be something that are very important for people when we do get back to the office space. And so hopefully you get some good things out of it and enjoy.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us on Taurus Tech Talk. For myself, for Corey Church, my co-host. Today we're having Andy on from MPS. Thank you so much for joining us, Andy.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So Andy is, again, like I said, with MPS, had been a partner of ours for a while. We met him a while back. Thought it'd be awesome to have him on the show, talk a little bit more about what they offer, how we partner together. So Andy, why don't you tell us your current role and kind of how you got to that?
Sure. I've had lots of different roles with this organization. I've been there for 7 years, which in today's world seems like a really long time, but it's not. My current role is SVP of Sales and Operations. So basically, I oversee the majority of the company from an operations day-to-day standpoint, but my DNA is sales. So that's part of what happened is as we've grown, we were trying to make sure that the reason people work with us and the message that we've been delivering and the story we've been telling stays true throughout our organization. And so I'm not an operations guy. I'm not a process guy. I'm always the worst offender within our organization of breaking the rules and not following them. So they put me in charge of it all.
We know goes like that.
Why did you look at me as soon as he said that?
I was looking at the reflection in your eyes of myself.
Yes, right. So
I'm probably that guy.
We all know what I'm talking about. But so my role on the operations side is really to help the message stay true of why people work with us. That way they don't get so bogged down with, well, we said it's 4 to 6 weeks. Too bad, and they don't get so rigid on that. And it just helped kind of bring everybody together. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm still probably I'd say 80% of my job is still sales, though. I manage our independent reps nationwide. I oversee a lot of what our salespeople do internally. And then they kind of call me an OG. I've been around a while. So there might have been some scenario that happened with some customer in 2013, and I'll be like, oh yeah. Here's what we did, and here's where that file's located.
Hey, Andy, can you go back in your memory bank for a second?
Yeah, exactly.
That's usually how the conversation starts.
So that's I still provide that role a little bit because, it happens probably weekly. There's some scenario that comes up that I literally am the only person that would have any knowledge of.
We have a few guys here. Back in the early days, things were really siloed.
Yes.
So, you remembered it, or it was in your email, or it was on your desktop. There was no centralized system, way back. So, when we get a blast from the past, another salesperson or engineer will be like, do you know anything about this? And I'm like, yeah, I happen to have every piece of documentation on that project on my computer, and it exists nowhere else.
Right here in my, mine's in my deleted files in my email.
Let me give all of this to you so I'm no longer responsible for that repository.
I can search
so much
somebody's name.
space is freed up on my PC.
I can search somebody's name in my inbox, in my deleted folders, and I'll be like, oh, that's where that is. Okay, and then forward that off. So
I like doing that, but Corey gets on to me about the email box space. He's like, hey, man, you have 15,000 deleted emails, right? We really got to get rid of all those.
So they got in trouble. Our IT company deleted half of mine at the request of our technology specialist. And then I blew a gasket because I was like, no, you just literally ruined the only bit of information we have from 2014 to 2016.
You're going to make me scold you both on camera. Yeah, it's a terrible repository system.
I work with a couple of customers that have to be in compliancy for different, maybe their government regulations, maybe their healthcare regulations, and they have policies where there's a retention policy. Maybe it's 90 days, 60 days. So if you sent or exchanged emails with them past 90 days, you're going to have to remind them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, for companies like NPS and companies like Taurus, space is cheap. But when you're talking about working with a company that has 3,000 to 9,000 employees, and you're talking about, I don't know, what's your mailbox? Like 50 gig or something like that, times 3,000 some odd employees, it gets expensive.
That's a lot.
Now you've got a submarine, with running your servers, just trying to keep them cool.
Well, and if you're like us, you back everything up 3 times.
We are like you. So that, yeah.
So, Andy, what did you do before? You said you've been with MPS for 7 years. So what did you do before that?
So I came on as just an account manager. So my background, I'm highly trained in sales. I have an education degree for economics and a minor in coaching. So
nice.
That was a joke.
Highly trained in sales.
I
was about to hear.
I have a
there
master's degree in educational administration.
Very
so
cool.
Nothing to do with what I do now. But very expensive pieces of paper.
So did you want to be like a principal or
well, so I started as a teacher and a football coach. I moved to Texas, to McKinney to coach there. I coached for 7 years, enjoyed it, loved it, had a blast. Then I started having kids, and my wife was like, I was working nights, weekends. I mean, football coaches in Texas work all the time. So the next thing to kind of regulate my schedule was to become a principal. So I got my master's to do that. I became certified, started interviewing, and it was in that process I was like, I really don't want to be a principal. It was just kind of weird. It was like, I remember sitting in an interview, and I ended up getting second, so they didn't hire me anyways, but like I was sitting there answering the questions, and I'm just thinking, I don't really want to do this,
Wow.
But as a father and a husband, I'm like, I'll do whatever I got to do. I don't really care. But like personally, I didn't get into education to be a principal. So one thing led to another. I heard about this opportunity through a friend, and I go in and I apply an interview, and it was really funny. I sit down with the owner, and our company was much smaller back then. And I sit down, whole thing had been like lined up from a friend. So it wasn't your typical, I applied for the job. So I didn't know what to expect.
Date.
Exactly. And I walk in and he goes, "You've never sold anything in your life. Why would I even consider hiring you?" That's how he started the interview. I'm like, oh, I thought this was going to be a little friendly than this. But
that sounds like how I would have started the interview, though.
It is how you would start an interview.
I'm thinking that's a perfect qualifying question.
It was great. Yeah.
Because for me, I'm wanting to hear your response. Like, you sell me on why you think you might be a good salesperson.
Right.
And if it's believable,
it's kind of how that went. For it felt like forever. It was probably like 5 minutes. He kept using phrases like, "If I were stupid enough to hire you," I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it felt that way while I was sitting there. So finally I was like, look, I kind of like stopped the interview. I was like, look, obviously I don't have any sales experience, but let me tell you what I'll be if you hire me, and what I'll do and who I'll listen to and what I'll, and so and then from that point on it flipped, and he was like, okay, all right. So, and
way to take control of the situation.
So that's all he was doing. He told me later, he's like, I just didn't want to have to fire a guy 3 months in who had a wife and kid at home, who had just changed careers. And he's like, if you weren't really determined to do this, I didn't want to mess with you. So I was like, well, okay, I appreciate that.
How old are your kids?
They're 8 and 5 now. So I had a 1-year-old at the time.
Wow. Are you doing it? Yeah, that makes sense. Math.
Boys, girls?
I got an 8-year-old girl, 5-year-old boy.
Nice.
So.
Awesome.
Nice. And are you done having kids? You want to have more kids?
It's not officially done, but unofficially done. Yeah.
Catch that. I am officially done. 3 girls, officially done.
We are unofficially done, but soon to be officially
done.
There
you go. There you go.
We have
I like how we're being very vague about the officially. It's
my
really
calendar
great.
was scheduled for August, and I kind of didn't
what you do is you
and
schedule it around like your favorite television show or sporting event. I scheduled mine around the Masters. So that way
wonderful.
I went in to the doctor on Wednesday and I got to sit there for 3 days worth of
I can't get up. I have to watch this tournament.
And she was there. So the doctor was like reiterating, just got to stay still. You're going to feel fine.
My wife would look at me and be like, you did this on purpose, didn't you?
Well, I told her from the get-go. I was like, well, I think this is probably the best date. And she called me on it.
You're thinking about it wrong. You need to coordinate it with some kid-related or house-related activity that you need to get out of.
Well,
I mean, you're not like you're going to do it again, right?
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Because you're official. I'm intending to be official.
I was gonna ask Andy, tell us something that we may not know about you, but
there you go.
I feel like we know everything.
we learned like
we got really intimate already.
I laid it out there for you.
I have a question though. So you're a young guy. You look young anyway. You could be 50 for all I know.
I'm not 50.
But,
Damn, crap, that was hard.
No, so you're gonna do this for however many more years. When you retire, do you see yourself going back into coaching? Are you coaching like kids sports?
Currently, I'm not. I imagine when my son gets a little older, my daughter isn't really into sports a whole lot, but my son kind of is. So I imagine I'll probably get into it. Will I ever go back to a high school and do that? The answer is no.
Well, like club ball or select ball or
maybe
some summer. My brother did a lot of coaching for his children when they were smaller, and then as they got better and things got more technical, he stepped out. But to watch him sit on the sidelines, he had a summer a couple of summers ago where he was coming out of coaching but still, sitting in the bleachers, and just he was getting really, really involved from the fence.
Sure.
And twice he had been reprimanded by this is baseball. He got reprimanded by the ump, and the ump was like, "Listen, if you say anything else, you're out." And so after that, he doesn't yell anymore. Like, he doesn't, good, bad, or other. He just sits and he watches, and then he goes to the fence and talks to his boy.
So I've always
privately.
been kind of the chill coach. I don't get all worked up about things. And so I don't have that problem at all.
That's good.
But we actually, one of our sales guys I used to coach, so we hired him.
Oh, really?
He's 26 years old now, but
does he still call you coach?
He's kind of stopped doing that, but for the first couple of years he did. Yeah,
it's kind of like a respect thing.
Yeah,
like,
I've interviewed a couple other kids.
I ever did not say sir to my dad. Yeah. I mean, that would be bad.
I've interviewed a couple other. I say kids; they're adults now, but I've interviewed a couple other former players to see if they want, and they come in and call me coach, and I'm like, okay. I'm not really coach anymore, but that's
because as a coach, you get to learn a lot.
That's what they know me as,
Even if you were coach for a year, to those kids, you're coach for the rest of their life.
That's
At least
true.
My coaches in high school and junior high.
Yeah.
Like, I think only one of them is still coaching, and I haven't seen them in years. But the last time I saw one of them, I was like, "Hey, coach," and I don't even know if I know their first name.
Yeah, I think breakthrough in sports when kids are younger is probably one of the most impactful things that can happen.
Absolutely.
Almost more so than a teacher. I mean, I hate saying that, but you're there with them in the intimate times and blood, sweat, and tears, and so yeah, that's pretty neat.
But yeah, he works for us, and he tells me the story. He's like, "You were always so quiet." He's like, "But every once in a while you would blow up about something, and it was usually once every couple of weeks." He's like, "But when you did, like, the entire team would stop and listen, because it was like everybody else is yelling all the time and you're just kind of quiet. And then whatever it was that you blew up
carries
about,
a little bit more weight that way."
He's like, it's kind of still that same way. Everyone's not quite sure what you're thinking. And if,
well, it's
if
like
I come in and get really passionate about something, they all know, okay, this is
for real.
This is something. So they hired me, and I took to it pretty well. To me, it was fun. I liked the fact there was a big scoreboard with my name on it, and like I could work harder or longer or learn how to be better than others. And it kind of just all clicked a little bit. So a few years in, probably 2 years in, they moved me to help. Basically, it was organic. I ended up managing the sales team, and it was basically everything that the company was doing had, processes and systems for the salespeople. I was testing out, and then I didn't like it. That's kind of my personality anyways. I'm kind of I'll just kind of do my own thing. And so, but I started doing my own thing, having success, and then the leadership of the organization started saying, well, can you teach the other salespeople what you're doing and how that, and so I rewrote some of the stuff. And so then one thing led to another. They moved me to the kind of manage the team while I'm still selling. And then 2 years ago or so, I became the VP of business development. So they put me in charge of, I've been chasing after the AV side of our business, and they kind of put me in charge of several different new market opportunities, new things to kind of get us into as a company, and the acoustic panels was one of them. So that was kind of my idea to start with. I was actually at Infocom, which is not the place you typically go to get inspired on acoustic panels, but and I'm not going to say who it was I saw, but I saw a product there that fixed a lot of the reasons why we didn't do it. And it isn't even the product that we sell. It was just an inspiration piece. You know, they were displaying something that I was like, oh, well, if we did it that way, that eliminates a lot of the frustrations that we've had in the past trying to do some of this stuff. So I came back from the show and kind of was excited, pitched the idea, and a couple months later we had uncovered other things we could do, and then it was, you know, off to the races and we got going. So
very cool.
That's been a pretty exciting endeavor for us because
it sounds fantastic, man.
It's opening up a whole lot of new doors, and it's pretty neat. So that was one of the things that I did, and then this most recent change was, like I said, just I'm still doing a lot of that same stuff. It was actually kind of more adding more to my plate, I guess.
The story sounds really familiar,
but we have some phenomenal people that we've hired recently, that customer service reps and sales support people that are doing such a good job. I've now been able to, you know, shout out to Lisa and Michelle, but I've been able to offload to them, and they've been able to come through and take over things that I for years would not let go of. So it's allowed me then to.
Would you mind giving me their resumes after we?
Absolutely not. I'm not even going to give you their last name. So,
so tell us about MPS. It's abbreviated for Making Privacy Simple.
Yep.
So tell us about MPS, how long they've been in business, and kind of a 10,000 square foot view of everything MPS is about.
So formerly Speech Privacy Systems. For about 20 years, we were speech privacy. We started with sound masking only. Our owner was in the ergonomic furniture industry and found a product that he really liked from Cambridge Sound Management.
Yeah.
Partnered with them in the early 2000s, like 2002, 2001. And he had been doing mostly ergonomics before then, but really was like, oh, there's a market for just this product. So changed his name to Speech Privacy. We started selling that mainly through the web, web leads, talking to end users. And then the 2008 recession hit and web leads kind of dried up. So one of the things that he changed, and one of the things I was brought in to do, was to find partners, to turn into more of a dealer distributor for the product instead of just selling end users directly. And so we started in low voltage because we had this network of installers we were using that were low voltage guys. So we started introducing the product to them, and then it branched into AV, and then eventually branched into furniture, and then Cambridge got bought out, and then everything changed there. So in 2016, we partnered with a Canadian manufacturer called SoftDB. They white label for us. They do all the engineering, product development, and then we distribute it in all of North America for them. And so that was really our company's history, was sound masking, white noise for corporate office, and that was really it. And then we added the acoustic panels, and when we did that, we really felt like, from a marketing standpoint, our name needed to change to match what we felt like we were doing.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more generic. Speech Privacy Systems is it's another word for, it's an SEO word for, sound masking. And so we wanted to broaden that. And so we did this several month long survey of our customers, and talked to our reps, and talked to our internal employees about, let's come up with name. We have some crazy ones. I don't want to say them. Some of the different potential options were like all the way to being off the wall to being similar to what the original one was. But then you got to get a URL that matches, and it's got to be registerable, and all these different facets that go into that. And it just kind of clicked. We were like, well, what do we do really well? And someone said, well, Jeff said it actually. Jeff was really instrumental in this. He was like, we just make things simple. We take a complex thing like acoustics and privacy, and we boil it down to make it simple for our customers and our partners. And so that was like, oh, well, that's what we do. We make privacy simple. So, and then MPS made sense. Making privacy simple is too long of a name to be saying everywhere. So just came up with the letters MPS. And so that's the kind of the iteration of the name. And that's what we do. I mean, that's when you talk about what my new role is, it's to continually communicate to every person in our organization. Our goal is to make this simple. And so then we always are asking, are we doing this to make it easy for us or to make it easy for our customer?
It's always a great question. And really any organization.
Absolutely.
To make sure that you're always asking that, because it's always going to be simple, or we hope it is, for the people that do it day in and day out, but it has to be simple for the people that actually are trying to buy the product.
Exactly.
It's funny you both say that, because I've had conversations with our engineers and our programmers who occasionally we'll get fired up and they're like, man, this could be way easier. And I'm like, the idea is not that it's easy for you.
Exactly.
It's easy for everybody else.
Yep.
Outside of our organization. And if it's not easy for them, then we're not doing our job. Exactly. And if we can make it easier for us internal, then that's great. But it can be hard for us. That's okay.
Yeah, we're here to take a hard thing and make it easy for them.
And that's part of, integration as a whole that
absolutely.
I think Taurus has really tried to find a niche in, is making a complex system, even as complex as this studio. And one button press, and we're recording
and we're going
4 different feeds and 4 different microphones, and it'll all be offloaded when we're done. And that's all completely automated. The idea, same as your company, making it simple.
Yep.
So I think it's a great name.
You're going to change your name
I think
now?
it's a great name. Yeah, we're just no, it's too much work.
MAVS.
We could probably spend a whole hour on just that portion.
Yeah. And then you go search to see if the domain's available, and it won't be.
It won't
and
be.
You'll start over because that's how it works.
That's why you just have the person in the room right next to you checking the domain as you're saying.
That's what we were doing. Everything we were saying, we were checking, and we're like, well, this one's $8,000. We want to pay $8,000 for, and so like we were weighing the cost, because everything's for sale, right?
Yes, of
we're
course.
weighing the cost of everything versus how good it sounded or how much we liked it. And
Taurus was founded with just 2 guys and almost no money. And so we ended up with
sounds familiar.
TaurusTechInc.com.
Mm-hmm.
And really we would prefer, TaurusTech.com or Taurus.com. And I always keep my eye out for those domains, but they're expensive.
Yes, they are.
And we haven't, Taurus, although we have been very successful, we are not successful quite enough to buy those.
To go buy those.
We'll get there.
So MPS based out of Richardson, Texas?
Yes.
Okay, great. And some of the specific products that MPS offers, you already mentioned in some of your history the sound masking, and you mentioned the acoustic paneling. What other products and services does MPS offer?
So mainly, when we say acoustic paneling, that can be broken up into multiple categories.
Okay.
So the base product is an acoustical material, but we do everything from wall treatments, like either geometric shapes on the wall or large sheets on the wall, or completely encasing a room, to like the hardware that mounts to a desk and then can create privacy screens between workstations. A lot of ceiling stuff, hanging baffles and clouds and different things like that. And then really anything outside of that that's custom. So, we've done a lot of different things with unique hardware pieces. That's something that we're finding out is it's missing. Well, anybody will do anything for the right price.
Yeah.
But we found that if we can offer some of these things at a competitive price or not without a huge upcharge, it seems to be we're finding our stride a little bit in that space. It can be frustrating on the production side, right? Because
because they're going to come to you with a dream.
Every time is this unique brand new thing we've got to come through on budget and on our timeline, but it's a need out there, and so if it's a need, we feel like we can.
Yeah, I feel like that a lot of our customers have. Let's just stick to specifically acoustic paneling.
Sure.
I feel like a lot of our customers have acoustic paneling, and just don't know that that's what it is. I feel like a lot of our customers also think that when they're going to entertain a discussion about it, they think it may just be fabric at a certain thickness on a wall, on a ceiling, on glass. But you guys have done some amazing stuff to take what is functional to treat the space acoustically the right way, to have maybe a podcast, to maybe have an audio call, a video call, or maybe just have an in-person discussion. You've taken something that works and then also make it an art piece is kind of what you're explaining.
We're trying to dual purpose everything.
Yeah.
So if you're going to buy desk screens to put between people, we want to tell that story of why would you not want it also to be acoustical?
Yeah.
You're gonna put it anyways. Is it going to be laminate or is it going to be glass or something that's reflective? Well, let's dual purpose and add acoustic material to it. Or if you're going to do some design on the wall or even your logo on the wall, why and you have the option to have it be acoustical, why would you not want to do that?
Exactly.
And so that's exactly what we're always trying to do. Is every product we have, we want to be able to have it do multiple functions, and in doing so, when you're talking to really anybody in this great construction process, right? The designer, architect, commercial real estate rep, all the way to the actual end user. When you're talking to anybody in that process, they understand we're going to have to pay for some of these things. But if you can tell the story of, well, it's already in the budget, why don't we make that acoustical as well? Instead of you're going to pay for desk screens, or you're going to pay for glass, or you're going to pay for all these things, and then we're going to come back and have to pay more money to treat the acoustics because of that.
Yeah, and now you're benefiting yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You're more than likely giving a better aesthetic approach to the solution that you're already going to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things we're working on with our team here, is to make sure that it's not just about the microphone or the speaker, or the display, or the automation piece. The room has to be the right fit, or the space has to be the right fit for what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to give a shout out, because I think the coolest one I've seen so far, I got to see it in person and through one of your podcasts and online, was the skyline of Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
That was my favorite one.
Yep.
I recently saw that on, I think, LinkedIn or something. I saw some pictures posted, or maybe,
I really like
maybe
it. I think you did several of them, but we saw the first one in person over at Human Scale.
Yeah.
Another one of our partners. I know I knew you guys partner with them as well. I just thought it was great. It's a functional piece, but it's an artwork piece at the same time. And, a lot of people look at it and they just think, oh, that's cool. And then when you say, what else that helps me do is it helps me keep a lot of reflective property off of that hard surface, bouncing around this room. And Human Scale's suite is, it's wood floors, it's open to the ceiling, it's glass. It's exactly what you're talking about, sitting across from someone that has some Human Scale product and the privacy screen. So I just wanted to mention that. I thought that was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, we're really proud of that one. That came out very well. And they're a great partner too. So it's been a great showpiece to like, hey, why don't you go check out, Human Scale's showroom. So we're doing photography and podcast and anything that we can do down there.
Before the end of this podcast, I'm going to convince you to have something like that right over here, where you can't see, it's off camera, but we've got glass that is the entryway to the podcast studio. And I'd love to see some flying Taurus logos. It'd be awesome.
We might be able to make that happen.
Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about, I noticed this spot on the website that I thought was really, really intriguing. And when we talk to customers that maybe have entered into the subject of sound masking, a lot of people get a real common misconception about what it is. So you got a spot on the website I really found awesome: sound masking versus noise cancellation. Can you kind of just take us through what that is?
So we SEO for the word noise cancellation because you got to think in the mind of someone that's sitting at their computer with a problem and doesn't know the solution yet, and what might they type into their computer. And that's definitely one of the words and phrases that they're going to think about just because of today's world, right?
Yeah.
You got noise canceling headphones and noise canceling cars and things like that people automatically assume, well, we just need some noise cancellation in here and that will fix the problem, not knowing anything about the actual technology of how it works. And so we have to deal with that a lot. We get a lot of people that we're constantly trying to educate the difference. And so the best way to explain that is cancellation is taking the sound that is leaving, the frequencies of sound that are leaving, the sound waves, and they're moving, and recording it and then reverse phasing it back at it. So that technology exists right now on an ear. And we've gotten our processing power to be fast enough to where they can hear something, that Bose headphone can hear something and then quickly reverse it back into that one ear. And they can do it. They can do it really certain frequencies. They can't do it on every sound, but they can do a pretty good job of an airplane and other background noises.
You're familiar with this. It's just a different property. AEC is the same idea.
And so that's how that works. And so usually I start with explaining how that works so I can explain how that's not possible in their space. Like understand that technology is doing instant processing and it's redirecting the sound a quarter of an inch away from your ear
I call that education by softening the blow.
There you go. Yep, exactly.
Inverse
Can't just
law.
tell them, no, this is quite literally impossible.
Right. So then you're like, so imagine we've got 50 pairs of ears in this office, all moving around, all different. How many microphones would we need? How many speakers how would we push the sound perfectly to each ear? The technology currently does not exist and is actually nowhere near being able to exist yet, simply because the implementation. Now you can, in a vacuum, in a small set, you can do it, but you start a dynamic office place and it's not possible. So then we explain what sound masking is and how that works. And then you say, so when you're talking about a group of people, that's still going to be the most effective technology that exists. Oftentimes the next question is, oh, like white noise, so then they start, oh yeah, like that little machine that I sleep, that, that I have an app for, or that's next to my bed. And so then we get the opportunity to explain how that technology has progressed over the decades, because it's been around since the 50s. I mean, the government's the DOD used white noise back in the 50s and 60s to protect their, meetings
to
about
isolate
the Vietnam War, right?
And hallways and
But white noise traditionally is really annoying. We all recognize it when we hear it, and it's not something you'd want to sit in every day and have to listen to. And so and this is really true of us, but all of our competitors as well. I mean, the sound that we're using is typically engineered sound to be more comfortable, but also still do what white noise does, which is cover over those conversations, make them unintelligible. And so it's a great question that people ask, because then you get to completely tell the whole story of the technology. And they're at the end, I mean, now they're like in the 90th percentile of understanding this type of conversation. Like they talk to anybody at an airport and know more about this than anybody else they encounter.
I love it when your colleagues, we obviously try to do a good job of educating on that front. And some people are better than others, but I love having your colleagues in the space. And let's say that we're in that literal space. That's subject matter. And I love how that they can use this. Okay, look, this is a 30 by 40 meeting space with 10-foot high ceilings, and the walls don't go to deck. And let me explain to you how I just educated you are things that we can and can't do to make your experience better. Oh, and by the way, Taurus Technologies will handle everything else on the technology front too for you.
It's that's been the biggest challenge for us, honestly, is to get the type of people in our organization that are, good workers, good salespeople, good communicators, and then also get over that hump of being a novice to being an expert in this stuff. It's challenging.
Well, that's everyone's battle, right?
Yeah. So it's like you got to kind of fail for a year before you've kind of bumped your head in so many different directions that now you know what to do. And sometimes people don't have whatever it takes to just get through that process. And
we're always encouraging the staff to just always feed yourself, always be learning. There's just in our industry really shares a lot of commonalities with the Pro AV and the privacy world, obviously, since we're partners. But I think a lot of people take for granted that, I know everything there is to know about video conferencing. This is simply not true. And I think as long as you're accepting of the fact that always feed yourself that information and knowledge, you're just going to be better. Every time I listen to a podcast of yours, or I have one of your colleagues come out to a site with one of our salespeople, I learn something every time.
You pick something out.
I think it's fantastic. So tell us about some of because I feel like, this podcast is about education after all. Tell us about some of the spaces and industries where you would see these products that people might not think about.
Yeah. Well, I can
go ahead.
You mentioned privacy screens between like cubicle style desks.
Mm-hmm.
It never occurred to me. And I know I've seen some fabric ones, and I've seen some glass ones, and I've seen some laminated ones, but that's an amazing idea. I mean, if you walk into a call center or a trade floor and it's just miles of cubicles with these 2 to 3 foot dividers between desks, as open floor plan spaces have become more popular, why not make all of those some sort of acoustical panel, or have some positive acoustic property? It just didn't occur to me until you mentioned it, 10 minutes ago. And I thought, that's brilliant. Like that
perfect.
should just be part of the furniture plan. never a piece of glass or never a piece of laminate. It's already bad enough, I think, to sit in a public space and, be face to face with somebody, and he's on the phone and I'm typing on my computer and somebody over there's listening to the radio from 8 to 12 at
a reasonable volume.
At a reasonable volume. And after that, I thought, well, we've got guys here who share some offices. They're not necessarily cubicles, but they might benefit from
I'm sure they would love
some
that.
divided workspace that offered some level of acoustic, again, positive acoustic property.
Well, we're running into exposed ceilings too. So I mean that seems to be one of the newest trends is just to do concrete or metal exposed ceilings, and it's similar to the glass conversation. It looks really cool. So if you're looking at a picture or whatever, it's like that would be really nice.
Yeah.
And then there's some physical realities that people find out after they've moved in that hey, this is awful. I can hear everything, and so I think that's probably still the main area that we touch is that open office. So you've got either the desk dividers, or even we'll hang panels from the ceiling at the end of rows, so that this team over here is all together, but then they don't feel like they're with this other team that's over there.
They have a little bit of isolation.
Exactly. And so it creates a little bit of a visual barrier there, which is good, as well as acoustic. So again, multiple dimensional benefits of the product.
And I've seen some of the projects you guys have done with a cloud or layered ceiling panels, or flown, and that's an architect's dream, because most of the time we're fighting against an architect to put a ceiling speaker in or put a microphone on the table. And you guys are over here like, no. You draw it up on a piece of paper and we'll make it happen and make it look any way you want. And it's still a positive, it's a benefit to the space rather than let's hang a piece of glass.
The irony there is the architect was the one that developed the open ceiling anyway.
Oh yeah.
That's the
it's a delicate dance, right?
Yeah,
so we go in there and do CEUs and stuff for them, and you got to be careful that you don't go in and say, modern offices suck. Like there's all these acoustic challenges that are there, and you're like, oh wait, you guys are the ones designing and creating that. So but most of them they understand the downside to some of this. And so they are looking for ways to incorporate this stuff. So it is just a great conversation that we can have.
Well, you guys are in a good spot with that, because you have the ability to create these custom and unique shapes that architects are just going to, flip over.
How do we fit this into your conceptual design that's in your head that you're trying to get out?
For Robert and I, a TV or a display or a camera or microphone only comes in so many shapes.
Exactly.
We're not going to go 3D print a new shape for every customer. So it's awesome you guys are
that's been probably the most exciting thing about the acoustic panels compared to the sound masking. They both solve acoustic problems, which can be challenging to articulate. Like everybody has their own expectations of what that means, right? The cone of silence or a soundproof room or whatever. And so you have to kind of help manage expectations and all that. And so that's the challenge with acoustics. But what's so fun about the panels versus sound masking is we've got something fun, custom, visual. Like I remember, and so this is when I knew this was the product we needed to be selling, because I had done CEUs and presentations with just sound masking to architects. And let me tell you, if you want complete awkward silence at the end of a presentation, present about sound masking to architects. And they all say, okay, thank you. That's the last slide. I've got to go.
Got to go to lunch.
Yep. And so they leave. And the very first time I met an architect with sample, we didn't even have inventory. We didn't even have the ability to do anything with it. All I had was samples of what we were going to be doing. And I sat down and I was like, what about some of this stuff? And her eyes got big and she grabbed one color. She's like, I have been looking for this color. And she ran off, like literally ran out of the conference room because she wanted to show somebody that she was working with, and then came back, so sorry, and I was like, I think we've landed on something here.
Nice. Nice.
So it's that was kind of the exciting part of that product. And then the fact that now we've been able to kind of bring them all together and say, let us walk a space. Let us come in and look at your space and say, here are some of the different ways we can help and what to expect from that solution, I think is a very unique thing.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that out there very much. So
I think I'd like to share maybe 3 examples just because of our time that people aren't really thinking about and we're trying to go in and educate customers on is, let's say first is lobbies. A lot of customer lobbies are designed to be nice aesthetically. They're designed to be open, feel warm. That's your first impression of a visit to a space. And a lot of them contain glass. They're usually open. Most of them would have solid floors, not carpet. After all, it is an entry. So I think a lot of people take for granted that although that might not be a space where there's technology in, you can add things like sound masking and privacy panels and acoustic panels to make that space, since it is their first impression, the best impression.
Absolutely.
I think another one that a lot of people aren't speaking about that I think is really, really important is that none of us really like to spend time in hospitals, right? A hospital is a dreary place to be. And if you're in a patient room, it's a sad place to be. You're never really in a hospital for a good thing. And even when we had, no more kids, that wasn't a good thing. But my point is that usually a hospital room is hardwood floors or concrete floors, right? It needs to be cleanable, easy, a lot of hard surfaces, whiteboards for nurses to write on. But by giving somebody a little bit better of an experience when they're in a place that they don't want to be in the first place can be huge.
Yeah.
And really at a minimal cost.
Yeah.
So we're having
a little pop of color and some additional privacy.
Exactly.
Whether it's on the ceiling or the wall or
exactly. And having somebody carry on a conversation with their loved one that may be sitting in a bed and not feel like that everyone in the world can hear them because the noise is just everywhere.
Yep.
And then a third one we actually worked on together recently was for one of our oil and gas customers. They need to be able to train people in the field on how to work on a gas line. So they have a facility out in Plano, Texas, that is indoors because even though they're going to be doing a lot of work on the outside, most of it, they need to be able to mock up something. So they're indoors and it's a warehouse, but they're trying to train people and they're trying to train sometimes 30 or 40 field technicians. And we're talking about gas. We're talking about really important stuff.
Right.
And you guys were able to come in and treat it with acoustic paneling. And man, you should see them. They're skipping down. They're
really?
Absolutely
Awesome.
loving it. It's a great success story. But my point is of those 3 examples is just to think outside the box. It for all intents and purposes is not an expensive investment, and I think the benefits that you reap out of a lot of what MPS can offer just pays dividends.
Absolutely. And we've seen, those examples plus more, churches and schools and, break rooms and conference rooms and boardrooms and waiting areas and check-in areas at hospitals, where people are sitting in the lobby and the other people are up at the desk sharing a bunch of personal information. Those are all challenges that are solvable to some degree, right? We can make them better. We can make that experience for the customer that much better than it would have otherwise been, or we can completely eliminate other problems, And so that's what's been fun about all this, is there's so many more opportunities for us to get involved with, and starting to kind of create that, that perspective of we're the type of company that is happy to take on those challenges or like get creative or get custom. I think it's fantastic. Now, any one project at any point in time might not feel so fantastic just because we're trying to find a hardware solution or we're trying to, there's a lot of challenges that can go with that. But, I just think the fact that we're flexible allows us to help more and more customers. And in the end, when you're helping customers, you're creating customers for life, you're creating partners for life, you're creating all these relationships that help sustain us and help us to grow. And that's what it's all about. So we really enjoy that.
Yeah. And I think one of the best things that Corey and I love doing is, we go, let's say it's an existing space. we go into a space and we've outfitted it with tech that the customer needs to be productive or maybe have their meetings or run their business, and we get to see enjoyment.
Yep.
And I think it's said the same for MPS. You come in after a space, and let's say that they have been having those challenges, and it wasn't the before thought, it was the afterthought,
Yeah.
and now you get to see that success and happiness after the fact. So it's a big deal for us, and it keeps us going, and like you said, it keeps customers happy.
Yep. No, I mean, I've told this story before, but we've got a customer where it was so bad, the echo in their break room, that they used for presentations as well, like all company hands meetings, and after we treated it, they brought the whole company in, and he mentioned that they had done something, and like 100 employees start clapping, like they noticed how much better this was. It was so amazing.
I enjoy coming to work.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that helps them. That makes them realize, the employees are understanding that we take their job and their comfort seriously. And, it's always nice to work for an organization that cares about your experience at work.
Most definitely.
So if we can help owners and decision makers at businesses help create a better culture for their people, we truly believe that we're helping change workplaces, and in doing so, changing the lives of the people that spend, significant portion of their time in these workspaces. Because we're not going back to private offices. It's not, we're not going to shift back and go with rows and rows of private offices.
I did read an article though that it was not as good as they had thought it would be.
Oh no.
And a lot of companies are reeling from that. But I mean, let's be honest. I think the whole open concept is a bit of a farce to save some money.
It's all about saving. Yeah. It's all about square footage cost of real estate. When you boil it down, we've done this. Like, we have a lot of private offices, and the way our space is laid out, it works perfect for us. But if you were to just square footage, say the number of employees we have, and let's go look around for other office space, we could fit that same number of employees in half the square footage with plenty of space for everybody, but we would be out in open space. And so it's definitely
we're in a similar boat here. And if we had started with a clean slate, we would definitely have some private offices, but we would have a large number of public workspaces. Now, we probably would have partnered with you to help us make those as private as possible without erecting, a 4-inch thick drywall wall to get the job done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
it's an
happening
industry
everywhere.
Trend that's definitely not going away, at least from what we could see.
Well, we hope not.
Well, Andy, it's creating more conference rooms and meeting spaces, though.
There you go. A lot more huddle rooms.
What did we say yesterday? Phone rooms and bistro rooms, and
there's so many buzzwords for them.
And they all need some sort of tech and some sort of privacy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Andy, thank you so much for coming on, man. I think this has been fantastic, and hopefully our listeners and viewers have got an opportunity to hear a little bit more about some things that maybe you didn't know that Taurus is able to partner with MPS on. For more information about MPS, we'll pop in a link below, so we'd love for you to visit their website, get a little bit more understanding. Got a lot of great visuals there, a lot of great examples. And for more information on this subject or any other subject, please email us at info@taurustechinc.com. For myself, for Corey, thanks again, Andy, and I hope you all have a great day.